Let's talk about Monkey D. Luffy, but more specifically, how Monkey D. Luffy has only been able to become the greatest anime protagonist of all time because of the work of the ones who set the standard before him, the legendary Akira Toriyama and Son Goku. For all of the records broken and genre-defying accomplishments One Piece has accomplished, anyone with even a basic knowledge of both series can easily see that One Piece is heavily riddled with Dragon Ball's influence in every aspect. From its intensely connected world building, the insanely vast power systems extending everywhere from magic to science to spirit energy, and I'd argue, most obviously in the power scale and character progression within these two worlds. But how that all directly parallels to Luffy and his journey towards the One Piece is the most interesting aspect of the series, since Luffy and Goku's stories both clearly begin with them having abnormally strong spirits of joy with powers foreign to the abilities known of their world. Both Goku and Luffy have an endless love for fighting and eating, with Luffy's extending to the point that his body can even instantaneously receive healing effects, solely by him eating meat, no diddy. Goku and Luffy also have a very similar lifestyle and ideology around the concept of freedom, where Luffy lives his life as a pirate and experiences the freedom to travel anywhere among the seas. Goku lives his life as a nomadic monk in the mountains and does the same thing. Goku and Luffy also both have the ability to use Ki Blast. Goku's is a more effective application that can be used at arguably longer ranges than most One Piece characters. However, Luffy is also a master of advanced armament haki, meaning each of his attacks are coated with an invisible spiritual projectile armor that allows Luffy to damage his targets from the inside out, even without landing his punches directly on his target. This combined with Luffy's stretching ability means Luffy can basically shoot gigantic meteor-sized Ki Blasts as much as he wants when using his full power. And speaking of his full power, let's finally talk about the most important aspect of Luffy, inspired by everything Goku did before: Luffy's gears. You see, Luffy shares more than just personality with Goku, and both of their powers and abilities have mimicked each other over the past decades, starting most obviously with Gear 2, Luffy's first transformation in the series. This form allows Luffy's stats said to be at the very least 10 times beyond that of his base form, and a reddish aura around both his body and his skin throughout its duration. This is a very clear reference to Goku's Kaioken, taught to him by King Kai of the Otherworld. And I know it's debated in the community whether Kaioken is a technique or a form, but for the sake of the video, I will be comparing it to Gear 2nd as a form, since it's obviously the inspiration, with the main thing Gear 2nd and Kaioken have in common not being their color scheme, but the fact that both techniques end up doing immense damage to the body of the user in exchange for a major increase in power. We saw that during the first canonical debut of Kaioken during the Saiyan Saga, that it pretty much destroys Goku's body from the inside every time he uses it, with those damaging effects increasing with every multiplier he uses. Whereas in Luffy's case, Gear 2 is said to take off some of his lifespan with every one of its uses. Despite each of their immense drawbacks, which of these forms is the best between them? Without glazing, in my personal opinion, I'd say the best form for how it's used in the story is definitely Gear 2. And I say this because of the fact that Gear 2 is effectively used as the first power-up Luffy obtains throughout the run of One Piece. It allows him to go from beneath characters like Lucci to being able to clear out almost every marine at Enies lobby, along with CP9, who were able to one-shot him beforehand. So all that should go to show just how insane the power increase is that it gives Luffy. It also managed to effectively carry Luffy well into the pre-time skip, and at Luffy's current point of mastery in the manga, Gear 2 no longer takes the same major toll on him that it once did. And while the same can definitely be argued for Kaioken, Gear 2nd I feel also has the ability to be very overpowered and possibly have even more base applications than Kaioken. Which brings us to the next one of Luffy's forms that is most obviously inspired by Goku's, Gear 4. When it comes to base Gear 4, the Bound Man transformation most closely resembles that of Goku's Oozaru form, as the Great Ape portrayed in Goku's Saiyan lineage is directly given reference to in Luffy's family namesake, Monkey D. Gear 4 itself has Luffy's armament haki outline as its trademark, and Luffy's rubberized muscles augmented by the spiritual armor's hardening ability. This gives Luffy's body the appearance of a giant gorilla, and he uses the form's power in the same way, going on a continent-destroying rampage against Doflamingo in the form's debut. Luffy can also use the power of Gear 4 to augment the size of any of his limbs to as big as he wants, shown with his King Kong gun and the Organ gun, which allows Luffy to sprout multiple arms to attack with. Gear 4 also gives Luffy the ability of flight, allowing him to use his calves as air cannons to propel his upper body in the air. This form's main weakness is simply the fact that after Luffy runs out of stamina, he can no longer use haki for the next 10 minutes of his fight, which depending on the circumstance could be considered a death sentence. This being compared to Goku's Great Ape form, which is the result of him being a member of the race of Saiyans, a humanoid warrior species that possess monkey-like tails that allow them the ability to turn into planet-destroying giant apes. This ability allowed the Saiyans to take ownership of the majority of their universe during their reign, using the Great Ape form to clear out all life and civilization on the planets they invaded. This method was apparently so effective that Raditz was convinced that even Goku as an infant would have been able to use this form to clear out all life on Earth within the span of days. So despite all of Gear 4's different uses and its applications, I'll have to say that the better form between these two is still and will always be the Great Ape transformation. Goku turning into a Great Ape is something that is so iconic among all forms of entertainment that I still feel it has yet to be matched by anything, despite the countless attempts. Goku's primal rage being perfectly executed every time he stares at the full moon in early Dragon Ball are still some of my personal favorites favorite moments in the entire franchise, and the feeling of dread that they induce upon removing the joyful personality of Goku from the room cannot be rivaled by any other transformation. Another thing that's really cool about how Great Apes work is how they're not actually a complete Rager mode, and we actually learn from Vegeta that you can train to retain your consciousness and control your body while in this state. It also requires the Saiyan to be under a full moon and them staring at it, or the use of an artificial moon as Vegeta did during his first battle against the Z-Fighters. Honestly, the main weakness of this form is the reliance it has on the Saiyan's tails themselves, as we saw with both Raditz and Goku, who are both incredibly weak, and when someone squeezed them, the ability to use this form can also be completely taken from the Saiyan in question by having their tail removed, or by the moon of the planet they're currently on being destroyed. So as long as you train up your tail enough to withstand some resistance, you shouldn't have too much debuffs to worry about. Then there's Gear 4, Snake Man, a very different variation of 4th gear that allows Luffy to take the movement speed of his attacks to the next level. In this form, Luffy gets much smaller, gains a black hue around his eyes, and his hair gets much longer. Luffy was able to move so fast in this form, the speed of his punches were able to outmatch the movement speed and reaction time of someone with the ability to see into the future. And this transformation came directly from Goku's design as a Super Saiyan 4, a form Goku only uses in the Dragon Ball GT timeline, which is currently considered non-canon by most of the fan base. However, most would agree that this is definitely the greatest thing that came from GT, as it is described as the pinnacle of the Saiyan evolution. It is essentially the same power that was granted to Broly passively, and allows the Saiyan to maintain the power of the Great Ape forms while retaining their humanoid body and control over their mind. This form also allows the user to absorb and convert energy attacks from their opponent, and I gotta be honest, it's very badass. When comparing these two, the answer between which is the better form is honestly very hard to answer. A lot of people would argue that Snake Man is the best transformation in One Piece, but I'll have to be real this time and say that the original did it way better. It may just be nostalgia speaking, but Super Saiyan 4 definitely was one of the peak moments of my childhood when I first saw it. I thought it was the first of an infinite number of Super Saiyan forms that Goku would continue to unlock throughout the following years, and for the most part I was right, but I feel like none of us would have been mad if that was Goku's final form. Which leads us into the final comparison of the video, starting with Goku's Mastered Ultra Instinct. This is another that's argued about whether this is a form or a technique. However, regardless of how you view it, this is Goku at his most absolute peak. This form is the result of Goku's multiple decades of martial arts training and life or death battle experiences that allowed his body to naturally ascend, previously only known to the angels. MUI gives Goku the ability to move without thinking, allowing his body to passively react to all incoming danger in an instant. This form was first awakened during Goku's fight against Jiren in the Tournament of Power. The sheer increase in power allowed Goku to output an aura of ki that appeared as its own galaxy, and allowed him to absolutely embarrass Jiren, someone who before that moment was one-shotting Goku's strongest forms by blinking. However, what really makes this form so amazing is the sheer amount of narrative building up to it, telling us that this was going to exist at some point in the story. Everything from Goku's first time training with Kami and fighting against Piccolo, to his battles against Cell and Frieza, and of course his training with the divine entity Whis, all led to his body receiving this massive boost in ability. And there's arguably no form in all of anime history that's cooler, unless we mention Gear 5. Luffy's awakening and the peak that allows him to manifest the true powers of his devil fruit, the human fruit model Sun God Nika. While MUI may have definitely inspired Gear 5 in appearance, Luffy's final form is capable of doing everything Goku's is and so much more. Since Luffy's devil fruit is based off a mythological deity with the power to turn its imagination into reality, this gives Gear 5 Luffy an ability that is most similar to reality warping techniques such as Toon Force, or the ability to defy physics of one's own universe and apply their own. Luffy has already shown and applied this ability to extend the properties of his imagination to outside of his physical form in ways that in no way involve rubber, like his ability to revive himself back from the dead, regenerate his stamina and strength by changing his heartbeat, materializing metal goggles from his hair, and more recently summoning a brush and yawn of paint from thin air, using them to paint a tree into the form of a baseball bat, and then hit a home run with each member of the Gorosei, flying off into space like Team Rocket. Gear 5 isn't just an amp to all of Luffy's regular stretchy base powers. This is a power-up that genuinely turns him into an anime MC with the abilities of a Looney Tunes character. His ability is similar to the Toon Force exhibited by the Dragon Ball character Arale, only on an entirely different conceptual level, since it's being granted from the powers of the Sun God, Nika. This means I have to be real with you and say that Gear 5 is without a doubt a better transformation than Mastered Ultra Instinct, and is arguably the best form ever in anime history. MUI definitely has way more build up to it because Dragon Ball has existed for like half a century, but One Piece's narrative managed to incorporate foreshadowing for the existence of Gear 5 for so long in such an effective manner that I genuinely don't believe even Dragon Ball was able to match it. Cause let's be honest, One Piece is basically the modern equivalent of Dragon Ball, only with much more well thought out plot points and narrative. One Piece basically takes everything that Dragon Ball does right and improves on it immensely with the addition of linear narrative, intricate characters, and immense payoff for long-term investment. But generally, my point behind making this video and explaining just how similar Goku and Luffy's journeys are is to explain to you just how much people have actually been downplaying Luffy, who just like Goku starts off his journey hundreds of miles below the highest tiers of powerful characters in his own verse. However, in the same way Goku was able to overcome these power gaps with intense training, Luffy has done the same and managed to awaken his Devil Fruit's true hidden power. With this reveal came the added revelation that Luffy is, just like Goku, a god that ascended to this world in order to fulfill a prophecy he had no idea about. While Goku's prophecy was to become the Super Saiyan god that would rival Beerus, and Luffy's involves him standing against the world's devil Emu as the rightful king of the world, Joy Boy. So in the same vein that Goku started off weaker than we perceive him now, and after his adventure has become a divine being with the potential to shatter multiverses, we have to start acknowledging that Luffy is now genuinely to be held in that same realm of people. He's not the same island level fodder that y'all so desperately try to make him out to be. And if Luffy and Goku were to fight seriously, I really believe Luffy could give Goku a run for his money. That's just what I think. Definitely feel free to let me know what you think about that in the comments. And if you want me to make a video about who will win between Goku and Luffy, definitely leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel with notifications on. If you have any video ideas or suggestions, feel free to leave those in the comments as well, or let me know inside my Discord. The link is in the description. Thank you for watching. I love and appreciate you all. Sun God signing off.
I come in clutch like a genie. Don't talk unless you need me. You talk too much, you need it. All of my bitches look like models, she in love with me. When we link, it's flashing lights and cameras, got a blammer.